This video is the first one in the series of this podcast in which we will bring some fascinating true crime and strange stories. In this video we will bring you the details about the 18th century female serial killer Maria Zwanziger, who was responsible for the killing of at least 4 individuals. But before continuing, if you liked this video, then please subscribe our channel and also press the bell icon for regular notification. Anna was born in Nuremberg in 1760 to a couple named Schonleben who ran an inn. In her formative years she had some security, but both of her parents died by the time she was 5, leaving her doubly orphaned. The cute, bright child was then dumped on different relatives. It was undoubtedly a difficult time because stepchildren are still frequently treated worse than natural children, with all the issues that abuse or a lack of affection can cause. This continued over the following 5 years until Anna, then 10, was saved by one of her wealthier guardians. He made sure she was well read, educated, and instilled in her a love of great literature that would last the remainder of her increasingly bleak existence. The adolescent had some stability while receiving an education in the merchant's home, but when she was just 15, he introduced her to a guy who was more than twice her age and suggested she marry him. A sober solicitor named Zwanziger, who was over 30 years old, had become her new suitor. Anna begged her guardian not to marry this man despite having affections for him, but he was adamant about it. The marriage was a disaster from the start. Her husband spent all of his time away from home. When he was there, he was downing cheap wine by the bottle. Anna was left alone to read the heavily dramatized and often woeful novels and plays of the day. She gave birth to 2 children, and one of them, her daughter, would spend time in prison as an adult for swindling and theft. Anna herself was prone to episodes of escalating depression and made 2 suicide attempts. According to psychologists, the majority of persons who attempt suicide actually wish to kill someone else. In Anna's case, this was either her miserly husband or a family member who had mistreated her. But for the time being, she just focused her aggression on herself. After failing at several suicide attempts, Anna reassembled her defenses and looked for a way to live. She turned to prostitution to maintain her family because her husband continued squandering the family's money and begged her not to leave him. She was still a lovely woman at this point who appeared and sounded refined. Anna was a popular and successful elite escort girl in her era. When she was 33, her husband passed away, leaving her much poorer. She held a number of occupations during her life and once gave birth to an unborn child who passed away in a children's home. She started to vacillate between housework and culinary jobs as her instability grew. She had a child with another man, who later broke up with her. She miscarried and then made an attempt on suicide by drowning. Later in life, she developed a pattern of men either ignoring her or walking out on her, and she flitted from one delusional relationship to the next, vulnerable like a light in the wind. Eventually, at age 44, Anna got a job as a domestic in Weimar, but she ran off with one of her employer's diamond rings, presumably an attempt to find financial refuge in a world that offered no social security. She then went to live with her grown-up daughter and son-in-law. But her employer advertised her theft in the local paper, destroying any good name that Anna might have clung onto, and when the son-in-law saw the advert, he threw her out. Anna was now committed to finding a second husband who could provide her with some stability. She recognized him as a prospective contender when a divorced Bavarian judge hired her as his housekeeper and cook. After tempting the wife to return to the marital residence, Anna dutifully poisoned her by adding significant amounts of the then commonly available poison arsenic to her drinks. Arsenic is a very harsh poison, causing symptoms such as severe stomach pain, vomiting, bloody diarrhea, and acute weakness, which can occasionally include momentary paralysis. Later stages may involve coma and convulsions. Poor Mrs. Glaser died within 3 days, suffering an agonizing death. Many of the Glazers' visitors experienced stomach discomfort after eating Anna's cooking. She quit working for newly widowed Judge Glaser because he continued to show little sexual interest in her and expressed worry about how unwell his dinner guests were getting. She then started working as the maid for another lawyer. However, this new employer, Judge Groman, already had a fiancé and had no plans to replace her with the frail and sallow Anna. When she was rejected once more, the woman poisoned his tea. He also passed away in excruciating pain, but because he had gout, his death was attributed to natural causes, freeing Anna to commit more murders. According to more empathetic stories, Anna really liked Groman and thought the arsenic would help him recover from his illness because it was used sparingly in medicine. Other versions claim that when his marriage banns were read, she killed him out of jealousy. The latter is more likely because poisoners seem to become addicted to their heinous powders fairly fast, and she would later describe arsenic as her best buddy. It's also true that the poisoner enjoys managing the consequence of her hazardous administration with a juvenile relish. Anna would have been happy to learn that Groman would never be able to marry his young fiancée. Criminologists believe that many poisonings have a psychosexual motive, and Anna's reluctant celibacy may have been piqued by seeing the man writhing in agony. Her next pick for a job was Gebhard, a magistrate. It is common knowledge that the legal and police communities regularly attract serial killers. Ken Bianchi attended police hangouts, Tim pretended to be a cop, and Ted Bundy studied law. For more than a year, Dennis Nilsson worked as a police officer on probation while Harris, a state trooper, carried out his fantasies of hanging women. Serial killer ladies also share this passion. Both Myra Hindley, who was also profiled, and Karla Homolka, who was profiled afterwards, had genuine aspirations of becoming detectives. Since his wife was ill and had recently given birth, Magistrate Gebhard requested a nurse. Anna was once more sure that the magistrate wanted to have a sexual relationship with her, so she murdered his wife with her preferred poison, arsenic. Mrs. Gebhard asserted that the new nurse poisoned her as her health declined because her meals tasted strange. Sadly, no one took her word, and she too passed away in excruciating anguish. Anna again anticipated the will of her recently bereaved employer, but was disappointed. She then into a poison-fueled rage, poisoning everyone who entered the Gebhards' home. She also poisoned the servants who worked for Gebhard and hated her, and when asked why everyone was hurt, she claimed that she must have overspiced the food. Gebhard ordered her to go after noticing a white silt at the bottom of his brandy glass, not realizing the retaliation she would exact. Going to the kitchen, she put large amounts of arsenic in the coffee, salt and sugar jars. Some sources say that she just poisoned the salt, but the salient fact is that she poisoned a foodstuff she knew would be used daily by everyone in the household. She also gave the baby a sweet or a biscuit as she left the house, and it too became violently ill. Realizing that a mass poisoning had taken place, the magistrate had the kitchen ingredients tested and white arsenic was found, a substance that is conveniently almost tasteless. The law now wanted to talk to Maria Zwanziger, but the cook from hell had disappeared. The murderess moved around over the following few weeks looking for a place to live and work. She moved back to Nuremberg because her son-in-law, who is now divorced from his wife, refused to make accommodations for her. She was detained there in October 1809 while carrying an arsenic package in her pocket. She persisted in denying everything, including attempting to place the responsibility for Judge Glazer's own wife's passing on the judge. She, like many of the other female killers in this book, was a credible witness who could effectively respond to all of the prosecution's inquiries. The trial went on for several months. When the remains of Fran Glaser and Judge Groman were later unearthed by the authorities, arsenic was discovered in their systems. If arsenic has been used over a period of time, It is still present in the victim's hair and fingernails. Then Anna yelled in court that she had killed everyone and would have killed more if given the chance. She explained that she wanted to see her friends writhing in pain because she could not stand to look at their smiling, healthy smiles. When asked how she could cause such suffering to her friends, she further said that if she had remained undetected, she would have continued poisoning men, women, and children without regard for their gender for many years. Anna Zwanziger doesn't qualify as a Black Widow style of killer because Black Widows mainly kill people with whom they have a strong personal relationship. Conversely, Anna deliberately poisoned many strangers who came to dine at her employer's house. She at first fits into the prophet typology, in that she hoped to profit from a first wife's death by becoming the second wife. Later, she moved into the revenge category, injuring or killing those who refused to become sexually intimate with her or who simply enjoyed a zest for life that she herself now lacked. Her motivation seems similar to that of the spree killer who decides that he hates life but will injure and annihilate as many others as possible before he shoots himself. The only thing that sets her apart from other revenge killers is that, in contrast to them, Anna was twice as old when she claimed her first victim. Was she a question of sanity case as some criminologists suggest? It seems unlikely. After all, she was careful to conceal her poison in elements that were impossible to find. She left the area after poisoning the salt canister. And when put on trial, she steadfastly denied committing the crimes for 6 months, only eventually confessing after unmistakable proof was discovered in the remains. She might not have been aware that such forensic testing were feasible because the technique hadn't even been completed 4 years prior. When Anna finally acknowledged some of the poisonings, she was tried for the deaths of 2 adults and a child. She was very explicit about her motivations. She had detested the well-being and joy of people around her, which contrasted sharply with her own worn-out appearance. Because misery enjoys company, Anna set out to make as many people as she could miserable. Life dealt Anna Zwanziger a poor hand when she lost both her parents and was then parceled out among her uncaring relatives. It is understandable that her journey from educated adolescent to young prostitute to humble maid caused even more sorrow and resentment. Her route from educated teenager to young prostitute to menial housekeeper understandably engendered further distress and bitterness. But she lost the sympathy that she was entitled to when she turned that rage on innocent bystanders and made them die early and agonizing deaths. We sincerely thank you for listening to this whole podcast, and please, if you liked this podcast, then also like this video and share it to your friends who love podcasts.